So everyone's more or less sat down. We'll make a start for the second half here. I'm just going to do a quick update to timings because we're not that far behind where we should be. But from now on, workshops are going to run from 1:35 until 4:20, sorry, 2:20, and 2:25 until 3:10. They're going to be taking two sessions of the two workshops we've got happening concurrently, and you'll switch. So if you're in tables 9 to 16, you need to move over at the end of this session to Hallam View, which is by the toilets on the other side of this mezzanine. And if you're in tables 1 to 8, you get to stay in this bit. And we'll be moving about the presentations, we're moving the presenters and not yourselves. So as we move on to the second half of this, we're going to hear from Bradford City Council, John Sharp, who's going to explain what they've done on a practical organisational, within buildings themselves, approach to reducing energy demand across council assets.
Thank you very much indeed. Can everybody hear okay? Yep, good. Okie dokie, we're not all fast asleep after lunch. Cool. My name's John Sharp. I'm the Energy Team Manager for Bradford Metropolitan District Council. I've been told I have to say that. Or the god of warmth and happiness, depending on my colleagues, or the god of cold and misery, according to those who are quite temperature sensitive. So why am I stood in front of you to actually kind of give you a little bit of a spiel? Probably best to give you a bit of a potted history of where I've come from. I was the world's worst chemistry student. I then kind of was a production manager for a lovely company called Kilgerm in Ossett. I then had a very happy 10 years wandering around the world being paid as an export sales manager, selling laboratory kit into all kinds of places like the Middle East, South America, States, etc. Wonderful job to do, 5-star hotels and being paid to do it, brilliant. However, I did get married and I wasn't going to stay married very long if I continued to do that kind of travelling. So I joined a consultancy, and this is where my kind of exposure then to the kind of renewable energy sector, low carbon and environmental goods and services came into play. And it was great to hear the previous speakers and seeing what they're doing. With this consultancy, I ran cluster programs for the Welsh Government, for kind of Yorkshire, did international trade missions on sector-focused stuff, which was all very nice and very good. And I got the privilege of working with over 600 companies in this field. So you learn a reasonable amount from these companies. So I know a little about a lot of things. At a certain point in time, I actually kind of set up my own business and kind of saw there was a gap in some of the kind of decision-making for UK government. And part of that was to do with the lack of hard data. So I've teamed up with some data mining guys. We redefined the sector as a low-carbon and environmental goods and services sector and provided the most detailed set of information for the government to be able to make decisions based on actually hard data rather than somebody's personal opinion, which was going on an awful lot prior to this stage. I've also kind of had the kind of, it was quite an entertaining time kind of designing, manufacturing, and installing air source heat pumps. So I've done quite a lot of that, specifically for the broadcast industry. So we've done for people like ITV, Al Jazeera, so I've done full floors of the Shard, etc. So I've also got practical experience of being able to do this. And then in 2020, I joined Bradford Council. I was hoping for a slightly easier life, and a bit of a run into pension time. And I started as a growth manager there, and we developed a retrofit kind of grouping and a grouping of green companies between ourselves and Leeds Council. The opportunities energy team manager came up in November 2022, so I've been in the position for 2 years. Second day in the job, I got given a district heat network to play with. Third day in the job, I got 2 solar farms and a load of other solar-based projects. And the fourth day, I was told you're going to have to cut the energy usage by 10% year on year. I thought that was quite an interesting kind of starting point. They didn't tell me that one in the job interview. Okay, so what we're going to do, and part of the reason for doing this is not just to tell you that I'm actually old. I am, but it's actually to kind of say with this, the way that we approach things in Bradford is very much based on the individuals involved. So my background sort of kind of determines how we're kind of approaching certain things here. So, just going to give you a quick introduction, a run through the structure of the team, our approach, actions, impacts, challenges, and the next steps. It's going to be fairly fast. So we have over 150 main buildings, we influence over 200 schools, and we've got hundreds of smaller buildings, sports pavilions, etc. We do employ over 8,000 people. We've got a wide variety of building types, from very nice new thermally efficient ones to some total shockers from the 60s and 70s, which are terrible buildings, thermally inefficient. We've also got a high number of listed buildings, which is quite an interesting kind of dilemma, which I know a lot of other councils are kind of dealing with. Currently, at this moment in time, because Bradford Council is in a severe deficit, we have a disposal plan to bring in capital receipts. So we're actually trying to get shot of a load of buildings, which means that we have to get our EPC sorted, and we're trying to kind of improve things so we get more value for the buildings. There's a really tricky balancing act going off at the moment. Every council has a completely different set of structure for how we deal with low carbon work, retrofits, etc. Ours, we still have a very strong built environment, an internal team. So we have a lot of engineers, we have a lot of architects, we have a lot of designers, and we have a lot of people that we can actually utilise on hand. We have a sustainability team who have been responsible for delivering the clean air zone in Bradford. It's been very successful. And they're dealing mainly with the external side of things, so they're dealing with all the community projects and some of the local area energy plans. We've also kind of got the sports and leisure guys and public health, etc. So we're communicating with quite a lot of different people. Now, previously, there wasn't an awful lot of communication in the council. There was a siloed approach. We're trying to break all that down and get everybody into the same room and kind of getting onto the same page. Within the energy team itself, we have utilities that directly report to me. Now, that's absolutely essential because we get all the data that we need. So we have data month by month per building for the last 5 years for every single building that we've got that we're actually paying bills for. That enables us to look at actually what is the impact of anything we do. So if we have a solution, we put it in, then we can see if it's actually worked or not. That's very important to actually be able to kind of get that information up to the strategic directors and the financial directors to get this moment in time to enable us to get the capital funds to actually do what we need to do. We have 4 kind of energy management officers and carbon reduction officers, and they're mainly focused around controls, so building energy management systems. This is a very big thing for Bradford. We have over 100 buildings that are fully controlled by ourselves. It gives us an awful lot of power to do what we need to do. We also have a sustainable housing officer, and I'll come on to that a bit because I know that's of interest to people in terms of the kind of work we're doing there. And we've been doing a lot of the electric vehicle work as well. Just to throw that in, it's a slightly different thing, but we are gradually moving that across the sustainability team. It's a slightly different project. As the Levi project kicks off with the WICA, and nationally, we need more focus on that and more resource. So, I have one target and one target only. 10% CO2 emission reductions per annum. That's it. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I've got to do that. So the good news about that, if we do that, then actually we're going to be reducing our costs as well. And that is a big thing for us at the moment, is energy costs. We do all the energy management for all our buildings and the estates around. We also have to do the EPCs and decks. We deal with the utilities contracts and billing. I don't know if anybody's ever had to do utilities contracts. That's an art form in its own kind of right. And we have to provide data. So we have to provide data to people above us just to show that we actually know what we're doing. We have been running the domestic housing retrofit programs. So LAD 3, Eco4, EcoFlex, GBIS, and the new ones that are coming up at the moment. I'll do a little bit more on the domestic a bit later on because there's some pain points in there. And then obviously we've got the renewable energy projects and electric vehicle charging points. Now, our approach to this is rather simple. The lowest carbon kilowatt hour is the one you never use. The cheapest kilowatt hour is also the one you don't use. And that's the way we're kind of working on this one. So this is about energy reduction. And then supplementing that obviously with renewable energies. So, we have a slightly different approach here with a heating plan. So we have a fully signed off by the chief exec heating plan, which enables us to set the temperatures where we think it needs to be. Now, that's actually quite a kind of key thing, and I've spoken to people in other councils, and I do believe we've got representatives from Sheffield who I know have spoken to some of their guys before. services actually determine what the kind of temperatures are. We determine where it is, and that enables us to kind of flex things really nicely. We have a sustainable design guide. So we have a design guide that all new buildings have to meet within the council. So anything that comes in, it has to have the right level of controls, it has the right level of renewable energies and energy efficiency kind of technologies into that. Where we're slightly different is we have a small projects budget of about £500,000 a year. And that gives us a great flexibility to actually be able to trial things and test things that come in from outside. You know, there's no point getting a consultant, paying them 25k, and apologies to any consultants out there, you're not all like that, but it's a case of if we can try it ourselves and it only is going to cost us £1,000 to give it a go, and because we've got the building energy management systems, we can see within a couple of hours if things are working or not. We're very focused on the people. I mentioned that at the beginning. It is very people focused. The staff that I have, all my energy management officers, all came through our apprenticeship program. They're all very practical, they're all very pragmatic. If a boiler system goes down, they're in there sorting it. If the control system's going down, they can go there and deal with it. So they all know how to use spanners and kind of screwdrivers. We have a wide range of other engineers on hand that we can utilise as well. And that's really, really helpful for when you're looking at individual building heating systems, because we've got a wonderful city hall, and I can imagine anybody else who's working for a local authority has a wonderful town hall or city hall, grade 1 listed, heating system which bears no relation to anything else on this planet. And if you can find the pipework on some of this stuff, you're doing better than we are, because we can't find it. And it's a way that kind of these big buildings, the heating systems, kind of grow over a period of time. So you need that expertise, and capturing that expertise whilst it's still there before people retire. So we've got a nice new system coming on board where we capture all of that information, all the kind of utilities information, all the repair information, all the heating system, EPCs, deck, all in one place, rather than it being all over the place as it currently is. We actually listen to our customers, believe it or not, so the people in the offices will listen to them, because that's how we find out where some of these issues are. We try to educate them, and we try to inform them, and we try to go down the behaviour route, and we found that when you're trying to kind of do that with 8,000 people, thermostats get changed all the time, and you lose control of the energy usage then. So our staff don't have the option to do that. We have thermostats in the room, but they don't do anything. Which is quite interesting. Psychology of heating. Now, this is something that I've been around a while. Heating is a really kind of individual thing. Temperature. Some people will find this room too warm. Others will find it too cold. And it's trying to find it in kind of the right kind of areas for people. But the key thing is variation of temperatures. If it varies the temperature, people will notice and they will complain. So we try to get everything as stable as possible. Even if it's at 19 degrees C and it's stable, people are okay with that. Previously, it was up at 22, 23, because that's what people wanted it to be. And so we've actually kind of worked off that. Another bit of psychology. We used to kind of set the heating 4 hours before the kind of people turned up in the building, so the temperatures would be ready for when they arrived in the building. But of course, the radiators have gone off. So 9 o'clock in the morning, we're getting hundreds of calls saying, heating's not working, radiators are off. What are you going to do about it? So what we've done about it is we've actually changed the startup times from 4 hours to 1.5 hours, so the radiators are still on. It's 2 degrees below actually where it should be, but the radiators are on, everybody's happy, no complaints. That's kicked out a massive percentage out of our bills in some of our bigger buildings on that one. So, data, we have more than enough to play with. On that one, it gives us a lot of power to actually see what's going on. Enables us to identify the issues very nicely and see what we've done. We've got real-time monitoring of temperatures in buildings. We can see when the strategic director puts a kind of 2 kilowatt heater on in City Hall, and we give her a call and tell her to turn it off. So you can see all these things quite quickly. But the great thing about it is that rather than having to travel between all the buildings, altering all the controls and actually kind of dealing with these issues, we can do most of it remotely. It saves our carbon emissions from our staff driving around. It means we can do an awful lot more work with the same number of staff. And when the Lion King's on at the Alhambra Theatre, we can deal with those issues straight away without my kind of guys having to go down there and sort it. And just in case anybody kind of wants to know what's the kind of, if you don't get the temperatures right for the Lion King, it's a 70 grand fine per day. So there's commercial kind of imperative actually getting this stuff done as well for us. We did kind of replicate the impact of a potential district heat network. The kind of consultants were going to spend 2 to 3 weeks putting heat meters all the way across 6 buildings. We did it in 30 minutes. They actually replicated it, so all straight away. Turning all the kind of temperatures down to 60 degrees in City Hall was a good one. It was a very interesting kind of approach. And who knew that Victorian cast iron radiators worked really well at 60 degrees C? All the perceived wisdom had told us it wouldn't work. It was perfectly fine. We had no complaints whatsoever with that one. So we've kept it at 60 degrees C, which is going to save us quite a lot of money. Technology, because of my background and going back to the kind of number of companies I've worked with, and I've been one of the companies that actually have kind of designed and installed kind of heat pumps, we work very closely with the local companies. They give us good advice. We work very kind of on budgets with them and new ideas. And we give them little problems like, we've got this really terrible 60s, 70s building, what can we do? And they come up to things, right. We're open to people bringing in new ideas. We're open to our staff bringing in new ideas. But what we're looking for is low-cost, high-impact solutions. And we are very prepared to make mistakes. We don't mind if we make mistakes. At least we've tried it, and we know it's not the way to go from there on. We do find out what's been tried in the past. External, this is always a good one, sharing of best practice. When I was at school, it used to be called plagiarism. Now it's called best practice, and we do a lot of that. So we steal all the best ideas from Leeds and kind of Merseyside, and they steal all the best ideas from us, and it's good. We don't mind that. Things like kind of the Association of Public Sector Excellence have been very good for us. Some really good, interesting stuff there. However, all this information and best practice is only useful if you actually do something with it. You can go to all these conferences that you want, but unless you're going to do something with it, it's kind of wasted. There we go, optimised heating, lighting plan for each building. We have sensors, state of the art now, and it's reduced kind of usage of energy 40% in sports halls. Selective lighting controls, sports pitches, 30 to 50% reduction. Radiator additive. Now, if anybody can remember back to when I was boring you with my kind of background, world's worst chemistry student, first job in a kind of chemical company, radiator additive. These guys came in and said, this is what it is, this is how it works. And I went, yep, fully understand it. 40 years ago, I was in the most boring lectures in the world on silicon-based compounds. Now I understand why I had to sit there. So this is saving us between 20 and 30% on gas usage in our central heating systems. Plenty of smart electric motors, LED, reduced 13.1% on gas in the last 2 years, 11% on electricity, CO2 emissions down by 55% in the last 5 years. Right, quick one on the retrofit program, because that was quite kind of relevant earlier on. The way we approach this is the supply chain's got to be good, and we kind of done the programs based on what supply chain we had in Bradford. And so we delivered over 500 properties in the first wave, got given another 100. Desnes, and I believe there's representatives of Desnes somewhere, told us it was the most successful kind of local authority program in the country. And it's because we stuck to things we can do, practical, pragmatic stuff. Fabric first. It's not it improves the kind of thermal efficiency, but it also enhances the experience of living in that property. So it gave them extra space and it enabled them to use bits of the building they weren't previously using. Very, very popular project. We've done a pilot project with Wyker, put together a load of good ideas, and then tried to overcomplicate it, so we're just in the process of trying to unravel some of the complications on that one. But we're looking at stone terraced houses, maximum budget 20k. Yep, effective kind of solutions that we've used within the council that we can roll out elsewhere. Obviously, you've got things like internal insulation, draft proofing, etc. A lot of smart kind of controls in there. But what we're trying to do with that is to kind of prepare these buildings for the next stage. So either air source heat pumps or heat networks, or whichever kind of works better for them. The key challenges, anybody in the public sector is going to know: procurement, legal, IT. I think it's Dante's kind of 9th level of hell is kind of dealing with procurement and legal at times. Obviously, silo approach. Let's go on to what's next. Further optimisation, but we've only just started. Continued deployment of BEMS, we're getting into everything we can do. We're trying stuff like Vortex Kit. It's brilliant, it kind of works well. We're just trying to see if we can roll it out. Stuff for kind of pools, ceramic microfiltration, solar PV, everybody knows about that. We're trying to roll out as many buildings as we can. District heat network, we're right at the kind of final stages of signing up contracts there. Yeah, that's been a real good one in Bradford City Centre. It's all my fault that Bradford City Centre's dug up. Hi Bradford, we've got £500 million out of the government to actually develop a hydrogen production facility in Bradford. Now, I don't know whether they gave it to us because if it goes up in flames and the bits of Bradford that it's in, we probably won't miss too much. But it's actually kind of a real good kind of boost for the economy there. Yeah, here we go. Coordinated estates and energy strategies. We're actually trying to develop those without consultants. Thank you very much indeed. I know I've gone over.
Thank you, John, and I'm sure you'll be around for the rest of the day if you want to take those things in more detail. So, as I was saying before, it's time to the workshops. We're running 2 workshops today, one on financing retrofit programmes and the other on developing public sector decarbonisation programmes. So, as I said earlier, those of you on tables 1 to 8, which is kind of people down the front, if you stay in here, and if you are in 9 to 16, which is the back, and weirdly this table. If you could move over to Hallam View, Emma is now waving at the door to signal your journey. And we should be back in here, the rest of if those of you who are leaving, at about 3 o'clock for the final wrap-up.